Hey guys, UncommonRamen here. I wanted to do a couple videos featuring games that are solo to play. You can play by yourself, but also come in small packages. They can be easily taken with you when you travel. Today's game is going to be Mintworks by Justin Blask. Mintworks is a refreshingly light worker placement game, as they describe it themselves. I think the first time that you see this is on BGG for the Mint Tin Design Contest in 2015, and it actually got quite a bit of attention on that contest. And then shortly after that, in 2016, August of 2016, the Kickstarter launched for the game, and it got funded a little over 7 hours into the campaign, so it was hotly anticipated. And as you can see, it's actually a very tiny box. Lives up to its expectation of fitting inside of a mint tin. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. One of the things you're going to notice right off the bat that I've done, as well as quite a few other people who have reviewed this game, is I've actually snipped the corners of the rule book and the cheat sheet, because it just makes it so much easier to pack and unpack this way. You don't have to do that. There are ways of, like, I guess, getting in and out without snipping it. I couldn't stand the way the corners were curled, so I ended up cutting mine. Another thing I saw is that people cut the opposite end. I kind of felt like that was redundant. There was no point at that point once you got the front. So, yeah. So this is your rule book and your cheat sheet, aka crib sheet. Alright. After that, we have the cards that are involved. These are going to be all your core locations and all your advanced locations, as well as deeds. And then here, and this is going to be what the video's main focus is going to be on, is your solo AI. I'll get into this as I get through this. It's double-sided, so there's 4 solo AI. And then this is the deck of locations that you can build. It seems like it's small, but I gotta tell you, this has a lot of depth involved. And you can see there's, I think, 4 different types. 2 of them, you're only ever going to see 2 of these, and these are your deeds. That's going to be your wholesaler, and I believe lotto. Yeah, lotto. So, very cool stuff here. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I have actually not played this multiplayer yet. I've only played the solo, and the solo is incredibly fun. And then last but not least, here we have all of our mint tokens. These are going to be your currency, what you're going to be spending. And in here somewhere is also the start player token, which I seem to have dropped out of the box. Yay, start player token. Okay. So, in Mintworks, essentially, you're going to have these mints to spend, and you're going to have a whole bunch of core actions that you can spend those mints on. Like the Producer, where if you spend 1 mint, you'll gain 2 mints. The Builder, where if you spend 2 mints, you can build one of the plans that you already purchased. The Supplier, where it says star mints. This basically is going to be the cost of the building itself. So this says right here that it costs 2 mints right here to buy. So that's what you would put on the supplier, and then you would take the card. And then it varies, obviously. So there's 3 and 1. Then you have the Leadership Council. This is how you are going to get the starting player token. It is essentially free, because once you spend the mint, not only do you get the starting player token, but you also gain a mint. But it was kind of imperative that they put this in here, especially for the solo play, because this is where you're going to see how you can take advantage of, beating this solo AI. Then some of the deeds that you can play are the Lotto and the Wholesaler. And then they had, I think, 4 advanced locations. You can use them to add a little bit more difficulty. They suggest, I think, 1, maybe 2 per game. And they have some really interesting things that they can do. And it takes us back to producer. Anyway, you're going to use those to gain mints and eventually gain deeds, and then eventually, not deeds, but plans, and then eventually build your plans. And as you build your plans, you're going to usually receive victory points for them. This guy, obviously, not worth any, but right here, he's worth 1 victory point. 3 victory points. And you're using these victory points to win the game, obviously. Once you hit 7, the game is over. Or it's not really over, but everybody else gets 1 more turn, and then the person with the most victory points at the end is the winner. During your turn, you have 2 actions that you're allowed to do, which basically consist of placing a mint or passing. And it's obvious when you're placing a mint, you're just placing on one of these spots and then doing the action, and then your opponent will go, and so on and so forth. And you do that until you either both players pass, or you just don't have any more mints to place and you're forced to pass. At that point, you'll tally up the number of stars you have, and you'll move on to the next round. So let's get into the solo AI and kind of the solo explanation. Right here, they give the solo rules, and you can see right off the bat there's one major thing here, which is that the locations, the core locations, are going to be set up in a very specific way, and they cascade downward. And that's really important for this, at least for this version, simply because the solo AI is going to use the topmost available location, and then they're going to work their way down until there's nothing left. So they literally won't pass unless they have no more mints, or there's literally nothing left to buy. And there's always going to be 2 plans available face up. Your AI is going to work based off of the iconography on the bottom of their card, and if the iconography on the bottom of the card doesn't help them purchase a plan, then they're going to purchase the plan that is closest to the core locations. So it's important to understand the position of these cards. So let's jump into kind of what these solo AI look like. So you have Justin the Designer. This one actually needs some details cleared up about it. There's a lot of questions about this that you'll see on BGG forums, in that when he uses a mint, he blocks all the remaining spaces on the location. There was a lot of questions about that on BGG. So to clear it up, essentially, if he comes to the producer like this with no mints on it at all, and he puts down his 1 mint there, that blocks off the location. So he'll be able to use it that turn, get the 2 mints, and then no one else can use it for the remainder of that round. Even though it technically still has the 2 open spaces, because his rules say that he blocked off that location completely. And that is where his difficulty comes from. He also starts at the starting player, and that's kind of where, in a normal game, you're always going to be the starting player. So at the very, very first turn, he's going to block off the producer for you completely. And that's where the leadership council becomes imperative. And fortunately for you, the leadership council is the last location in the cascade, so therefore he is least likely to go grab that. So let's explain some of this iconography right here. On the bottom of the card, the dollar signs basically is what it's saying is that he's going to buy the cheapest card first and then move on to the most expensive card. And that he's going to buy cards with the listed symbols in their corner in this order. So that's basically Justin. Like I said, his hardest thing is that he blocks off a location completely. So if you don't get to use that location before him, you're not going to be able to use the location. He is also, in my opinion, the easiest AI to start with. Because aside from that, he plays just like a normal AI would play. So that would bring us to Mort. Mort the Mint Tycoon. His big thing is that he has an unlimited supply of mints. So essentially, he can buy whatever he wants and build whatever he wants whenever he wants. As long as he has the open locations to do so. The fortunate thing is he won't buy production plans, which is good because they just create more mints for the most part, which means that you'll have open access to that. But it means that he's going to... It still doesn't mean that he's not going to take the locations like the producer, essentially. And this is where the difficulty of his AI comes in, because, like I said, the AI is going to take the topmost core location and cascade down until there is no more left, which means he's going to take the producer arbitrarily because he does not need the mints, but he will still block off the positions on the producer board. He also is going to buy the most expensive buildings before he buys the cheaper buildings. So since he can buy them with no problem whatsoever because he's got unlimited mints, and he can build them no problem whatsoever because he's got infinite mints, he basically is going to be buying and building a plan every turn. And with the more expensive buildings, you get victory points faster, essentially. So that's where the difficulty of his AI comes in. But he also blocks himself off of buying the production buildings, and since none of the AI will buy deeds, that leaves two different cards in the deck that he simply won't build. So if you play very carefully, you can actually block him off by simply putting plans on the table that he just won't buy. And you can also kind of mitigate his speed by purchasing the expensive plans before he does, but that's all just going to be based off strategy, and that's why I don't think he's the second hardest, the second easiest to play, and it's just because he's actually really easy to out-strategize. Just because he's got the infinite mints doesn't make him all that scary. So that would lead us into Rachel, which I believe is the second hardest AI. When she spends mints at the supplier, they are removed from the game. So in the normal game, and with any other AI except for Rachel, the number of mints that you are allowed to have is infinite. Once you run out, you have to find some sort of replacement or figure out some way to, get more of these mints. Well, with Rachel, you're limited to these 30. That's it. You don't get any more. And as she spends them at the supplier, they get removed from the game completely. This is bad because she will buy the most expensive buildings first. And she likes to buy production buildings first, which means that she's trying to get all the mints, then spend all the mints before you have an opportunity to do anything with them. And what ended up happening is the few couple games that I played with her, it got so close that there was maybe 4 mints left in the supply, or 3 mints left in the supply. And, you know, other than that, she wasn't that difficult. Other than that, if you knew how to, like I said, prioritize how you were buying things, or pay attention to what she was going to do next, it was actually really easy to kind of work around the fact that these mints were quickly disappearing. Still second hardest. And that would leave us with Sonic the Cuteness. I want to preface this by saying that with Rachel, Mort, and Justin, the first time I played the AIs, I beat them. That is not the case with Sonic. Sonic can take 2 turns in a row. And the only thing that limits him is that he will only use the supplier if he doesn't have a plan in his hand. So he's only ever going to have generally 1 plan in his hand. He also buys the most expensive building before the cheapest building, and he tends to go for the green buildings, which tend to have more victory points on them. And because he can take 2 turns in a row, he is just ridiculously fast. And unless you know how to control the plans board and take control of the cascade, you're gonna end up losing to him. I think I played 7 games before I finally beat him, and I got really lucky because there was a deed in the plan table, and I purposely did not buy that deed so that it left only 1 location out there. So he is very difficult to beat, and that's the solo AI. This game, regardless of whether I was playing Justin or Sonic, was incredibly fun to play, and every game played completely different from the last game. There is a underlying strategy that you should eventually get the hang of, but it still doesn't detract from the fact that this game is insanely fun. And then to top it all off, it fits in a tiny little... It's about the same size. Actually, I think it is the same size as an Altoid can, which means that if you could stick it in your pocket, essentially. If you were on a train or going or on a plane on a trip, you could take this with you, and you could actually play it on the little table on the back, the tray table on the back of the seats, because it's just it's such a convenient size. Like I said, haven't played the multiplayer, but I feel like the multiplayer would just be that much more challenging, because now you have to deal with the unpredictability of how other players choose to play this game. The solo play is already incredibly fun, so I can imagine that the multiplayer is just as fun. Yeah. Very fun game. Very small box. Mintworks by Justin Blask. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and like and subscribe, and I will try and be back next week with another feature of another solo play game in a travel-sized container. Alright, peace.